Hi, welcome to my channel Tech Krish or GEG Agra. Since I was discussing logical operators and Boolean expressions in Python, so we discussed the basics of these operators on and expressions. So now we are taking a step ahead. However, we discussed not, or, and in my last video. We also discussed false and true, the combination of true and false in our last video. Now we are taking you to the next step or next stage, and that's why we are moving towards our presentation. So let's see. So see here, logical operators and Boolean expressions. So we have discussed this a bit in my last video also, and this time we are going to evaluate this expression like 5 greater than 4 and 7 greater than 9, or 9 less than 7 and not 5 less than 7. So when such kind of expression appears wherever, whether this is in book or in the test paper, the first step which you will have to take is you will have to evaluate the relational operators. So over here, 5 greater than 4, this is true. 7 greater than 9, this is false. 9 less than 7, this is also false. 5 less than 7 is true. Then we'll evaluate the not. Rather, we should evaluate the parenthesis, but since not is the separate entity, and that is why there is no difference when you evaluate parenthesis or not true statement. So I am here evaluating not true, that is false, false or false, true and false, or false and false, and this is the state, this is outcome of the previous statement. And if you look at false or false, this will give you false, and that is why the return of this statement would be true and false and false. So when we evaluate this, true and false will give you false, and false and false should be false. So the output of this statement will be false and false, and the output from false and false is false. Now we are going to discuss some zero and non-zero values and empty and non-empty objects. Like if you discuss 0 or 0.0, means 0 values is always returns false. 0 and non-zero value both are different, so 0 values return false and non-zero values return true. Okay, now next statement, if there is any empty object, it will return the false. So over here, if you look at, so null, then empty list, empty parenthesis, empty curly brackets, or empty dictionary, it will return the false value, and any non-empty objects will return true. Then none will also return false. So moving ahead, talking about the AND. So this is logical AND. So the expression which is composed of AND and Boolean values, then if AND is involved, then it returns the first false value, and if the first false value is not found, then it returns the last value. Let's say, so in this expression 0 and 2, we'll have to find out the first false value. So over here it returns the first false value, means the false value is 0, and that is why it will return 0 as output. Now next statement, 2 and none. So first false is none only. So first false is none, since first false the first value is not the false value, and that is why it returns the last value, that is none is returned. In the next statement, A and B, as this there is no false value because A is true value, because this is non-empty string. B is also non-empty string, so there is no first value, and that is why it returns the last value, that is V. When we talk about OR operator, OR returns the true value, first true value, and if first true value is not found, then it returns the last value. So see here, 0 or 2. So here the first value is not the true value, and that is why it returns the last value, that is 2. Five or true, 5 or none. So the first value is the true value, that is why it will return 5. Next statement, 0 or empty list. Since there is no the first value is not there in this statement, and that is why it should return the empty list. None or 0, there is no first value, true value, first value is true value, and that is why it will return 0 as the output. Some more elucidations and examples. So see here, true and false and true. So if you talk about the AND operator, then the first value will be returned if the first value is the false value. Since this is not the false value, true is not the false value, and that is why, and then the first false value should be false value. So here false is the first value, so it will return false here. Now in the next statement, the first false value, this is combined with OR operator, so first true value. So it will look at the first true value, that is true, and that is why the output will be true. If we talk about this statement, since this is combined with AND operator, so the first value is not the false value, and that is why, so first false value is null, and that is why it will return null as the output. In this statement, it returns the first value, first true value. Since there is in the beginning there is no first value, true value, first true value, and the first true value is 5, and that is why it will return 5 as the output. And in this statement combined with OR, so first true value, there is no first true value, and that is why it returns the last value as the output. In this expression, there is no false value. There is no false value, and so it should return the last value. None is not the false value, 2 is also not the false value, and that is why the last value is 23, so it will return 23 as the output. So this is how we discuss or evaluate these logical and Boolean expressions in Python. So we'll discuss more on this in my next video, and hope you understood the concept of logical and logical or and not, and the logic of the Boolean values Boolean expressions. So if you understood the concept, kindly share it with your friends and tell about the videos about the operators and the logical expressions and Boolean expressions as well. And if you have not subscribed my channel, kindly subscribe it so that, and press the bell icon also, so that as and when new video is created, you get the notification of the video. So we'll meet in the next video with some other concept. Bye bye.